China's military modernization is a major factor driving some observers' concerns about China's rise. China's intentions toward the United States and its allies and partners, and the role China aspires to play in the world. China's military progress also informs the widely held view that the United States and China are engaged in a great power competition. Congressional actions on these issues could shape, and be shaped by, U.S. defense strategy, budgets, plans, and programs. U.S. policy toward China, U.S. partners and allies in the Indo-Pacific, and the region more generally, and U.S. defense industrial policies, among other things. The People's Republic of China's, PRC's or China's, ruling party, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is modernizing, reforming, and reorganizing its military, the People's Liberation Army, PLA, to defend the party's interests and meet defense requirements set by China's leaders. These interests and defense requirements have expanded in recent decades as China's economic and geopolitical power and ambitions have grown. The CCP's national defense priorities include defending the party, protecting what it views as China's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and unity, protecting China's growing overseas interests, deterring nuclear attacks and maintaining a nuclear counterattack capability, and deterring and countering acts it views as terrorism. Some of the party's national defense objectives, such as safeguarding the CCP's control over the country and deterring nuclear attacks, have been in place for several decades. Others are more recent, such as safeguarding China's overseas interests and its interests in space and cyberspace. China presents its military posture as purely defensive, serving only to protect China's legitimate sovereign interests. It calls its national military strategy active defense, a concept that prescribes the ways in which China can defend its interests and prevail over a militarily superior adversary. This strategy allows for the use of offensive operational and tactical approaches, and the PLA has and continues to develop capabilities to wage offensive operations across a range of domains. China's current military modernization push began in 1978 and accelerated in the 1990s. Xi Jinping, the General Secretary and core leader of the CCP, Chairman of the CCP's Central Military Commission, and State President, has continued to make military modernization a priority and has linked military modernization to his signature issue. The China Dream of a modern, strong, and prosperous country. In 2017, Xi formalized three broad goals for the PLA: to achieve mechanization of the armed forces and to make significant progress toward what the United States would call a networked force by 2020, to basically complete China's military modernization process by 2035, and to have a world-class military by 2049. The centenary of the establishment of the PRC. Xi has initiated the most ambitious reform and reorganization of the PLA since the 1950s, in an effort to transform the military into a capable joint force as well as to further consolidate control of the PLA in the hands of Xi and the CCP. After decades of modernization supported by steady defense budget increases and other policies that promote military technological advances, the PLA has become a formidable regional military with growing power projection capabilities. China's armed forces are improving capabilities in every domain of warfare, have superior capabilities to other regional militaries in many areas, and are eroding U.S. military advantages in certain areas. China's missile force, in particular, can put at risk a large range of targets in the region, including U.S. and allied bases. The PLA faces significant challenges and limitations, however, including a lack of combat experience, insufficient training in realistic combat scenarios, a limited ability to conduct joint operations, limited expeditionary capabilities, a new and largely untested organizational structure, and a dependence on foreign suppliers for certain military equipment and materials. As the U.S. attempts to pivot its national security focus to the Pacific, the situation in the South China Sea continues to grow more complex. China claims almost the entire area as its own and has running territorial disputes with nearly all of its neighbors, while tensions remain high in part due to the presence of a more aggressive People's Liberation Army Navy. The same day Pentagon leaders issued a new directive to focus the department on China. The plan has been deploying additional surveillance assets to one of its artificial island military bases in the South China Sea, according to new imagery reviewed by USNI News. Satellite imagery from Wednesday provided by Maxar shows a Type 815G intelligence gathering ship in the lagoon at Fiery Cross Reef in the Spratly Islands. On the airfield are a Chinese Navy Y-8Q maritime patrol aircraft and AKJ-500 airborne early warning and control (AEW&C) plane. Fiery Cross Reef is one of several fortified artificial islands in the Spratlys. The Chinese government has used land reclamation to build a runway, harbor, and military base at its western end. The island is closer to Vietnam than mainland China and is also claimed by Vietnam and the Philippines. These competing claims have caused simmering tensions, which occasionally rise into confrontations. In particular, the Chinese government has been conducting extensive surveys of the area, including in other countries' exclusive economic zones, EEZs. A large part of this is because of natural resources. In addition to fish, the Chinese government appears keen to exploit untapped hydrocarbons lying beneath the seabed. The U.S. Navy has found itself embroiled in these tensions. In May 2020, 2 U.S. Navy warships were deployed to conduct a presence operation near a Malaysia-contracted drillship. The ship, West Capella, had been harassed by Chinese government ships. This adds to numerous freedom of navigation passages and regional exercises. China, too, appears to be scoping out the hydrocarbons hidden beneath the South China Sea. In 2019, a specialist ship, Hai Yang DG Ba Hao, surveyed the Vietnamese EEZ. This was despite protests from Vietnam. Analysis of the ship and her movements, shown in Automated Identification System (AIS) data shared by MarineTraffic.com, suggests that she was conducting a seismic survey. This involves using active sonar to penetrate beneath the seafloor and is mainly associated with undersea hydrocarbons. Fiery Cross Reef also played a part in that episode. It is strategically placed deep in the South China Sea, a long way from China, yet relatively close to Vietnam. During the survey, Hai Yang DG Ba Hao made port calls several times at the reef. For the survey, Hai Yang DG Ba Hao was escorted by other vessels. It is not usual for seismic survey ships to work with smaller boats to clear the way and protect the vulnerable towed arrays from damage. But Hai Yang DG Ba Hao was at times escorted by 14 or more guard boats, according to satellite imagery. They indicate some of these were from China's maritime militia. The maritime militia forces are a constant aspect of the tensions. A significant number of fishing vessels, some part of the militia, are present at Fiery Cross Reef in the Maxar imagery. China is accused, most recently by the Philippines, of using the maritime militia to push their territorial claims and exert pressure in a way that is difficult to counter by force, but denies doing so. Earlier this year, over 200 fishing vessels were massing at Whitsun Reef. The reef is administered by China, but also claimed by the Philippines and Vietnam, and lies within the Philippines' EEZ, so the boat's presence significantly raised tensions. China has been conducting a range of other surveys in the area and further afield, in the Indian Ocean and, it is suspected, in Indonesian sovereign waters. But the activities in the South China Sea are likely to continue to gather significant attention.